Good morning and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. On Sunday, Romanians headed to the polls to elect a new parliament with the far right expected to make significant gains, potentially signaling a shift in the NATO countries' foreign policy. Now, this parliamentary election turmoil sparked by a top court's decision to order a recount of the first round of the November 24 presidential election, which has shaken the country after nationalist Călin Georgescu's contested victory. And joining me now to discuss is Radu Albu-Comănescu, fellow at Visegrad Insight. Good morning, Radu. It's so good to see you again here on TVP World.
Good morning, and thank you for the invitation.
Radu, so, before we even hit anything deeper in all of this, here, take us through the exit polls, last night's exit polls. What does it mean for the future of Romania? What's the new political reality that Romanians are looking at, and who will potentially form Romania's next government?
Yeah, that's a whole new story, to put it like that, because exit polls, for instance, were not trusted from the beginning. Given the experience last week, everybody said that they will refrain from believing the outcome. What happened is that in the meanwhile, so this morning when the votes were counted by almost 100%, we woke up in a Romania that has a very strong far-right voice, meaning that now we have three far-right parties that entered parliament, summing up to 33% of the seats in the parliament. The good, if I can say so, the good news in this is that they clearly don't have majority, and they still cannot match the total of the pro-European, pro-Western parties. But the interesting change is to see this very morning, once the results were announced, that parties that are expected to, let's say, constitute a front line of Europeanness and European credentials and Western orientation, started, as usual, I would say, in Romania, to dispute which should be, again, the party that gives the prime minister, even if before these elections, it has been agreed that the prime minister will come from the Liberal Party, and which are going to be the condition they put to ally with the other parties. So it's a bit of a touch of what I would call unexpected responsibility that we see now, instead of building a powerful message sent to the electors that we are going to keep on the track of European integration and NATO. The parties that are actually having the majority, the pro-European majority, are now hesitating in finding out which is the best combination they can promote, sometimes to preserve their own party politics and not necessarily the straight line of Romania's integration.
So what would you say that led the far right to gain traction in these elections?
This is exactly, I would say, the behavior we see in today's major parties' policy, or the mainstream parties' policy and reaction, is what drove Romanians to opt for this vote of protest, and which tried to be a sort of revolution. The thing is, one can fully understand that Romanian political class needs renewal, needs more seriousness, more direction and more conviction, and also results. Politico published a very interesting article on the 7, I would call them the meager cows, biblical cows, that brought down Romania's economy and stirred a bit the anti-establishment resentment. But it is not this far right that is exactly the regenerator of the Romanian politics, meaning that the options that was made is now laying on the shoulders of individuals who do not have a clear plan of what Romania could be or should be, except for opposing everything that comes from Brussels and probably mimicking more or less the types of approach and policies that Viktor Orban has in Hungary, but without the content that Viktor Orban can give to his nationalist policies in Hungary.
Right, so how could this affect Romania's role with NATO and the European Union?
That will depend indeed on who will be elected president next week and on the coalition that will be shaping more or less the political life. I'm saying more or less because there may be other solutions which are definitely not mature enough, meaning, for instance, parties will not form a coalition, but they would rather act in a unitary manner only based on the policies that need to be approved. So it will be a very fragmented parliament, and therefore we can't say at this moment if there will be any changes, durable changes in the approach we have of foreign policy or of including integration, meaning, you know, the absorption of the acquis, the way we work with Brussels and the way we work with the European partners in general. So it's going to be at least one more week of uncertainty. But I think that in the, you know, at the end, the mainstream parties will learn to make concessions that are much needed now, because otherwise we will have indeed a powerful nationalist extreme right bloc that would impact on the legislation and would impact on the choice of president. It's like I would call it a vicious circle where the extreme right presidential opinion, for instance, may impact on the choice of the political choice made now in the general elections, itself impacting on the second round of the elections. And we all wait, of course, the decision of the Constitutional Court today to see if the first round is actually validated or not.
I was going to ask you just that right now. Radu, we spoke last week and we were still waiting for that court order, and I really wanted to know, I mean, what is the status of this? However, do you think that will the court's order really impact this decision? And what happens?
It's a ping pong, I would call it, because last week it was pushed to this week, and this Monday, actually, it was initially announced that the decision will be made public somewhere in the afternoon. Now again, it switched to the morning. So the thing is, in the end, I think that the results.
Why is the court holding back this decision? Why is this decision being pushed back and forth all the time?
Because of the risk of political upheaval and political scandal, given the fact that the results will not necessarily change, and that if they do.
1 second, you mean the results will not? Sorry, you just said something very, very interesting here, that the results won't necessarily change. What does that mean? Absolutely. That Georgescu stays? Is that what you're saying?
Stays on the first, yes, because the votes were recounted last week and during this weekend, and there are barely any changes. I mean, insignificant, if ever, numbers to the ballots cast. So I think the Constitutional Court tries to avoid a public scandal by creating a martyr out of Georgescu if he's taken out. So because the numbers did not change, they will probably validate the first round, and we shall see which is the legislation they invoke or the precedents they may invoke. There isn't much to, but they are sometimes very innovative, I have to say. And if we go the following Sunday, this Sunday, basically, to vote for the second round, therefore, or to continue the adventure we started in the first, which is what I believe to be the rule.
Radu, with the possibility of a fragmented parliament, how difficult is it going to be to form a stable government after this election? Do you see it being chaotic or stable? And I believe this is something that Prime Minister Marcel Ciolacu had told the media, that Romanians have to choose between stability and chaos. So how do you predict it's going to look like for Romania?
I would love to see politicians keeping up to the same opinion, or at least initial opinion, because of course much stability is needed, in politics, economy, and in foreign policy. But all three parties this morning announced a very different approach of coalition building. They put conditions which are a bit hard to digest, and two of the parties, the Social Democrats of former Prime Minister Prime Minister Ciolacu, and the Liberal Party, even opted for a scenario where they can be staying in the opposition, meaning they will not contribute to a political combination that would be dominated in terms of, initiatives and political options by the so-called progressives, which are the centrists, progressive, the USR. So it's going to be a party, to put it like that, but a party that keeps the electorate in an impossible tension and may also justify that kind of rancor that the society has against those who are simply mistreating the trust that was put in them every time during the electoral cycle.
Radu, and let me ask you this. I mean, reports are that this was the highest voter turnout in Romania's history. What can you tell me about this?
And let's put it like this: in the recent years, yes, indeed, in the recent years, yes, it was quite the percentage similar to the presidential elections, 52 plus percent. But it rose from a very disappointing 33%, if my memory recalls well, which was the previous which were the previous elections in 2020. And also 2019, because we have a 1 year difference between the presidential elections and the general elections. But this means mobilization, and probably people not only wanted to change something, but they wanted to express frustration, because if we take a look at the numbers, it is more rather the extreme right and the very disappointed electorate that mobilized and expressed themselves through voting, rather than the classic electorate of the mainstream parties. So we have to pay much more attention to what happens in this literally a third of the country's electorate that feels profoundly disconnected from the European Union and what the EU promotes and the way it is understood.
So why do they feel, just very briefly, Radu, because we're almost out of time. So you just said that. Why do these Romanians feel disconnected?
Oh, it's a mix of economic problems, of social integration, of not feeling the benefits of integration in the EU. And they belong to, sociologically speaking, to, let's say, the second half of the economic life, meaning they are those who perform elementary jobs and not high added value jobs. And therefore, the proximity and the closeness, the risk they see in their daily life, the revenues that are diminishing, the instability has an impact on their choice.
Thank you so much, Radu Albu-Comănescu, fellow at Visegrad Insight, for all your input on Romania's parliamentary elections. Thanks for being with us here this morning. And that's all for this edition of World Talks here on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching.